Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how you can create the animation that you just saw and how to add music to it. So let's get started. First let's hit Shift A and add a plane. Go to Geometry Nodes and close this window and click on New. Now delete the group input and add a volume cube. Alt Shift click it. Add a volume to mesh. This one. Plug it here. Also add a subdivision surface. This one. Put it here. You don't necessarily need this node, I just use it to make it look smoother. Now add a set shade smooth node. Put it here. And a set material node. Go to the material properties and click on new. And now select it here. Now change the resolution here from grid to amount and add an integral node. This one. And plug it in here into the resolution and into the voxel amount. Let's set it to 64 for now. I'll increase this value later. Just be careful with that, because the higher the value, the more computational power it needs. By the way, if you want to have this display here, just go here and enable it. You need to enable timings. Now let's add a mix RGB. Plug it into the density. Add a gradient texture. Plug it into the factor and into color 1. And set it to spherical. I'm also going to add a wave texture. Plug the color into color 2, set the detail here to 15 and add a mask wave texture. Set it to 40 and the detail to 10. Plug the height into the vector. Add a position node. Put it here. Add a separate XYZ and a combine XYZ. Plug the vector into the scale, and here let's plug the position into the vector. Let's take the Z and plug it into the X, and let's move this over here. Now we need a vector math. Put it here. Set this one to tangent, and now add a math node and set it to sine. Now duplicate these two nodes and connect them like this. Let's move these over here. Now set this to absolute here and set this one to power. Now connect the Y to the Y and let's move this down. Duplicate this vector math node and put it here. Now again add a math node and duplicate it 3 times. And let's also duplicate the vector math and put it here. Set this math to cosine, this one to greater than, and let's set this one to less than, and this one to multiply add. We need to set the vector math to floor. Take the Z here and plug it into the end. Now connect the X to the Z. Duplicate the tangent and put it here, and let's put this up here. Set this to cosine, and let's take the vector here and plug it into the multiplier. Now let's just select these math nodes and duplicate them, and let's plug them in here and this one into the Z. Set this one to truncate and this one to multiply. Take the Z from down here and plug it into the value on the bottom. Set this one to add and this one to maximum. And now let's set this one to tangent. take the Y and plug it into the value on the bottom. If we go back to the Musgrave texture and change the W, we've got something like this. If you want to animate this, then just hover over the W and press I. Open the timeline here. Now you won't see the keyframe here unless you've got the plane selected. For the animation that you saw in the beginning, I simply keyframed the W depending on how dramatic the music was. So for example, if your music gets more dramatic at frame 50, then go to frame 50 and set it to 2.5 for example. And of course change the end frame to your music. Now let's keyframe this value again. And if you want to hear your music while playing the animation, you need to go to video editing and go to frame 1 and simply hit Shift A and add your music. If the music that you want to use is contained in a video file, then just hit Shift A again and click on Movie and import the video. Just make sure to delete the video clip. So I just imported a video from my tutorials, and the blue clip is the video clip, so let's just delete this. And now if we press play, you would have the sound. So I'm going to delete that again and go back to geometry nodes. Now I'm going to show you how I animated the camera. So hit Shift A, add an empty and a camera. Now here click on the empty and press Ctrl P, object. With the empty selected, press delete on the numpad and 1. Now press Ctrl Alt 0 to go into camera view and select the camera and press G Z to move it on the local Z axis. Now if we select the empty, as you can see, if we rotate it, the camera will rotate along with it. You can still animate the rotation, for example, of the camera itself. Simply select the camera and press RZZ, for example, to rotate it like this. And then you can also go to the object data properties and change the shift. You can also animate that. For the depth of field, I'm going to add an icosphere. Let's set the subdivisions to 3 and subdivide it by pressing Ctrl 1. Now scale it down slightly like this. Back in camera view, go up here and enable depth of field. Enable depth of field here too and select empty 001. Now let's change the f-stop to something you like. I'm going to leave it at 0.3 and set the blades to 16. This looks fine now, but as you can see, if we press G and Shift Z, for example, with the camera selected, the empty will stay here, and we don't want that. So let's press Ctrl Z. Now select the empty, go to the object constraint properties and select track 2 and select the icosphere. Now select the empty, go to the object constraint properties and select track 2 and select the icosphere. Now if we select the camera and press G Shift Z again, for example, as you can see, the empty will stick to the icosphere. Let's hide the icosphere in the viewport and in the render. If you don't have this option here, you need to go up here and enable it. Select the plane and go to shading. Before we go to rendered view, let's save just to be sure. Now go to rendered view. I saved it because sometimes it crashes for some reason when I go into rendered view. As always, I'm going to use this HDRI, the link to that is in the description. Now go to the render properties and go to film and make it transparent. Let's also go to color management and set the look to very high contrast. Here. Now add a mix shader. Put it here. And add a color ramp. Plug it into the factor, and let's also add an ambient occlusion. put it here. I just noticed that I've got an error message here. If you've got the same error message, just close Blender and open it again. It usually fixes that, but of course save before you do that. As you can see, I just restarted Blender and now it's gone. Now connect the color to the factor here and set it from linear to constant and bring the white into somewhere around here. Add a subsurface scattering node, put it here and plug it into the top shader. For the principal BSDF, let's set the metallic to 1 and the roughness to 0.38. Add a Musgrave texture and press Ctrl T. Use the object coordinate and set the scale to 400. Set the detail to 16 and the dimension to 0. By the way, if you want to get these previews here, you can get the no preview add-on through the link in the description. Now we need a color ramp. Put it here. Connect the height to the factor. Connect the color to the color here and here. Now let's make the black a light gold, like this. And let's make the white a dark gold, like this for example, and drag this down. Connect this vector to the normal and add a bump node. Put it here and use the height instead of the normal. And let's set this to 0.5. Add a noise texture. Put it here and set the scale to 10 and the detail to 8. Set the roughness to 0.45. Now take the normal here and plug it into the normal here as well. Back in geometry node, set the integral anywhere between 64 and 256, but be careful with that. Now if we go into rendered view, we've got something like this. Go back to the render properties. I'm going to render it at 128 samples with denoise enabled. If you can, use optics. If you can't, then you'll have to use open image denoise, but I prefer optics. Go to compositing and enable use nodes. Add a denoise node set to accurate and enable denoising data to get these outputs. Now go to the output properties and you can use PNG of course, but I'm going to use JPEG. I prefer it because the file size is smaller. The only downside to using JPEG is that what we made transparent won't actually be transparent, it will just be black. And also set the quality to 100%, or if you use PNG, set the compression to 0. You will also need to select an output folder. I won't do that since I already rendered the animation, but for example let's call the files rendered images. And now if you put an underscore after the name, Blender is going to automatically assign numbers to the frames. Before you render the animation, I recommend to save again and go to video editing. If you've still got your music file in here, you will see a number next to the name. This number indicates how many frames the music needs. And then you'll have to set this number as the end frame. Once you've done all that, save again and go to render animation. Then once it's done rendering, go to file format, set it to FFmpeg video and set the container to MPEG 4. Set the output quality to high quality and go to audio and set it to MP3. Make sure that you are on frame 1, hit Shift A and then find the folder where you have your images. Then once you've added them, just go to render and render animation again. So that's it with the tutorial. I hope you liked it. Please let me know what I should do next and I'll see you next time.